Well, fantastic to be here. And thank you very much, Jeanette, for a really informative presentation. It's always very good to see specific case studies. And as you know, today I'll be looking at the SoAR for Apartment Residents program, which I'm running in addition to fellow team members here in the department. So first of all, acknowledging I'm sitting on Darug country, which is here in Parramatta. The department acknowledges that we stand on Aboriginal land, and we acknowledge traditional custodians of the land and water and show respect to elders past, present and emerging. So next slide, thank you. So to start with an overview, the problem statement we're really working with here is the fact that in New South Wales, we have really world-leading rates of solar energy installation on single standing homes. However, only 3% of apartments actually have solar. There's a really big discrepancy between single standing homes and apartments at the installation rate of solar PV systems. That's going to become even more pronounced as we become more dense in our urban development practices and as Sydney becomes more dense overall in the future with more apartments. And that's something we need to start addressing now. To try and address this, the government is providing up to 50% of the funding to eligible owners, corporations or strata managers to install shared solar systems on apartments or other multi-unit dwellings with 3 to 55 residential lots. We give up to $150,000 of grant funding per project. It's a demand-driven grant. What that means is it's not competitive. If you meet the eligibility and the suitability criteria, you will get the money. So that's the good news. So as long as you have ticked all the boxes and you've crossed your T's and you've dotted your I's, and you've done the right thing across both eligibility and suitability assessment, you will get the funding, which is great. And ultimately, we want to achieve the two overarching objectives of saving on costs of electricity bills for apartment residents, but also reducing emissions as New South Wales heads towards its emissions reduction targets. Next slide. So key lessons and changes. So what we want to sort of talk about is some of the experience we've had so far in working with owners corporations and the experience we've had and lessons we've learned along the way in supporting owners corporations and revising the program accordingly. So one of the things that happens when you begin a big grant program like this is there's only so many installers in the market to get quotes from. And that actually created a really big backlog because every applicant was going to the same installers and they were getting overwhelmed. And so what ended up happening was owners corporations couldn't get 3 quotes like we originally wanted within the timeframes we wanted. So we decided to actually reduce the number of quotes down to 2. You still have to select a preferred quote from those 2. That was one of the lessons we learned, and we ended up reducing the number of quotes required in that process, and also being realistic about the the time frames it takes to go from passing the eligibility assessment to then doing a full application. That actually involves passing a sustainability infrastructure resolution in your strata, which is something that requires minimum 3 weeks to arrange because you need an EGM. EGMs require a minimum of 3 weeks to actually notify and then to hold. So this is something that takes up a fair bit of time. And you also have the learning curve of understanding what needs to go into a resolution, what stipulations need to be there, what shouldn't be there, if you want to get a solicitor to help with you and all these things. So owners corporations have had a lot of administrative tasks to do and a big learning curve to climb. And that meant the actual application timeline had to be extended from 25 business days, 5 weeks, to 40 business days, 8 weeks or 2 months at the suitability assessment stage. So we've still kept the eligibility assessment stage, the initial quick assessment, at 10 business days for us to do. That's but for us to assess within the department. When it gets passed over then to the full application that the applicant needs to fill out, then they now have 40 business days to do that, not 25, because of the reasons I described before. So something that we learned along the way. And also really making sure we're clear about the role of GST and STCs in the costings of the grant applications. This caused a bit of confusion initially among applicants, and we had to actually go out and clarify that through the frequently asked questions page, but also now we're in the process of updating our guidelines to make sure this is more clear, because the applications are meant to exclude GST and also apply any STC discounts. So these are sort of the communication and the very much the human element and the administrative element involved in actually rolling out a program like this. So these are some key lessons we've learned along the way. Next slide, please. So those are the changes we've made in accordance with that. And there's some changes in the wording to the grant guidelines we've made there at the bottom. So if you want to see that more clearly what we've done, there you go. So next slide, please. So in light of what we've also seen across the application process, we also have some key lessons we probably would like the applicant to be aware of now, more so than later. Some of the things, as I mentioned, are arranging an EGM, which you need to do to pass sustainability infrastructure resolution. People underestimate how long that can take, a minimum 3 weeks legally. However, it often can take longer to actually get enough people to attend to make quorum. People are away on holiday, they've got jobs to do, they've got old parents to care for, children to care for. So trying to get enough people to kind of make quorum at the EGM to pass the resolution and arrange all that can take a bit of time. So keep that in mind. And if you have a strata manager who can advise on the legalities and the sort of the principles and practices of holding an EGM and passing a resolution, also consult them as well. That's what you're paying them for. It's logical to kind of bring them into this process and let them inform you what's involved in that. The other thing is also we've seen a real range in the quality of quotes, and I would sort of like to communicate with owners corporations to preemptively check the quotes they're getting from solar installers. They all have to be registered as a net CC and SAA a registered entity. But the problem is the quotes often be sometimes lackluster. They can aggregate all the costs together, not itemize, for example. And for us, that's actually a bit of a problem, because what you end up getting is applicants who include ineligible costs, or they don't specify what the enabling costs are. And we don't really know if they stick within the parameters of what we're willing to fund and what we're not willing to fund. So make sure you itemize everything, but also make sure you have prices that include and exclude GST, and also the pricing after the STC discounts have been applied. That makes our job a lot easier, and it just means things can move on a lot faster for your application. And what's also important is there are some important 3 sort of main ways you can actually install solar energy for your apartment. You can use solar splitter and sharing, and there's 2 big players in the market: Illume with their SolarShare system and Zico with the Marshall system. So you can do that approach. Alternatively, if you're on an embedded network contract, a really easy way to do it. It saves you a lot of time and money if you just work through your embedded network provider, or you upgrade smart meters. So that's typically more financially viable for smaller strata, particularly accounting for the fact that enabling costs like upgrading smart meters can't exceed more than 10% of the total system cost. So something to consider when you're doing your application. Next slide. So any questions, you can reach out to us at our website, or you can go to the website and you can actually check out the documentation there. That gives you more info. The other thing is also we have a shared mail inbox. So I'm just going to share that in the chat right now for those of you who would like to reach out to us. So it's solar.banks@deq.nsw.gov.au. I'll just see if I can send that to all the
Thanks so much.
Okay, I can't message
that's
the
okay. We will we'll provide all the links to resources. Yeah.
Wonderful, that's great. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So I'll put the shared inbox in the chat so you can read that, Nikki. If you want to then pass that along in the chat to the attendees, that'd be great.
Will do. Thanks so much, James.
And thank you very much.
There are a few questions for you in the Q&A that I can see. So one of the ones that I'm seeing is, is this a first come, first serve grant program?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's what demand driven means, basically. So unless we run out of money, which could happen, not likely, we've got a fair bit, 25 million to work with, but if unless we run out of money, we'll give you the money as long as you meet the eligibility and the suitability criteria outlined in the grant guidelines. So just keep
Great.
that in mind.
Thanks. There's another question from Jenny who is asking if the grant program is still open. They've got through the first gateway, but were under the belief that they needed to submit the final application by early June, and they couldn't meet that deadline.
Yeah. So the way it works, we typically give a maximum 1 month extension to applicants who need an extension. We are pretty strict about that. If you can't meet that 1 month extension, then we request you just go back and reapply from the beginning when you have more time and information. I think, otherwise what happens is you can kind of give too many extensions and people never really quite figure it out. All of a sudden you've got 50 applications who are sort of 3 or 4 months overdue. And just to keep things orderly, we are quite strict about that 1 month being the maximum extension. If you have to go back and reapply, that's fine. And to be honest, you probably won't run out of money by that point. Like I said, we've got a lot of money to work with, which is really good. So I wouldn't be too worried about that. And if you go back and reapply a second time, you're going back also with the quotes already, with the EGM sorted, potentially. Like a lot of the groundwork's being done this second time round. So it shouldn't be as much of an issue the second time. It might have been the first time. So please keep that in mind.
Right. Thanks. Someone's also asked if there have been any successful SoAR applications yet. So anyone who's gone through stage 1, stage 2, and actually installed.
Not yet. We're finally getting through. We've had some issues in our end, which is making sure we clarify STC's GST and how all that works with the tax code. And we've had lots of meetings in the lead to try and make sure we sorted that out. Now we've done that. We've now got a number of them pending final assessment, or have already kind of going through the approvals pipeline up to our director. So it is in the pipeline, quite a few of them. And so we don't have any successful ones yet, but in the next few weeks, we are going to have a few successful ones who are passed both application and assessment stages.
Amazing.
Sorry for anybody, if there's any delays for anyone, my apologies for that. It's an issue though that we wanted to sort out internally first, because if we didn't sort out issues around STCs and GST, we get that money, that could actually be a real problem for us and for the applicants. So we were happy to delay, and overshoot the timeline we gave for full application assessments, just because it would mitigate a whole lot of issues down the line. So if anyone is wondering what's going on, my apologies for being waiting. We'll just have to sort that out to make sure this doesn't turn into a bigger issue in a few months' time.
Yeah,